Shadows Chapel had loomed over the small, forgotten village of Ashridge for centuries. Abandoned after the tragic massacre of its parishioners during a stormy midnight mass, it was said that the church bore a curse so dark that even the wind avoided its bell tower. Locals whispered of the shadows that danced behind its shattered stained-glass windows, the faint cries of agony that echoed from its rotting pews, and the heavy presence that seemed to watch anyone who ventured too close. Father Gregory, a devout and steadfast priest, had heard these rumors but dismissed them as mere superstition. Recently assigned to the region, he felt it was his duty to cleanse the chapel and reclaim it for the church. Armed with his Bible, holy water, and unwavering faith, he arrived at the chapel on a cold, misty evening. As he pushed open the heavy wooden doors, a rancid smell wafted out, so putrid it made his stomach churn. The interior was decrepit, filled with overturned benches, crumbling walls, and a pulpit covered in years of dust. Despite the decay, Father Gregory pressed on, determined to begin his prayers. But as he moved closer to the altar, an unnatural chill enveloped the air. His breath fogged in front of him, and the once faint murmurs of the wind outside grew into distorted whispers. He paused, gripping his Bible tighter. The chapel seemed to exhale, the walls creaking as if alive. He shook his head, dismissing his unease, and began reciting prayers aloud. "Lord, bless this place and rid it of evil." Before he could finish, the whispers turned into wails. He spun around to find the pews filled with shadowy figures, their faces obscured but their hollow, empty eyes locked onto him. They swayed as if caught in an invisible tide, their murmurs overlapping into a cacophony of torment. Gregory's pulse raced as he backed away toward the altar, raising his crucifix. "Leave this holy ground, in the name of God," he commanded. The figures froze. For a moment, silence fell over the chapel. Then, one by one, the shadows began to stand, their movements jagged and unnatural. A low, guttural growl reverberated through the room as the largest shadow stepped forward. It pointed a gnarled, claw-like hand toward the altar, where Gregory now noticed a strange object half-buried beneath the debris. Overcome with dread yet driven by curiosity, Gregory moved cautiously toward the altar. He brushed away the rubble to reveal an unholy relic, a blackened, ornate dagger etched with symbols that pulsed faintly with an eerie, red glow. The moment his fingers grazed the blade, a deafening scream erupted from all directions. The shadows surged toward him, but an unseen force held them back, trapping them in the pews. Gregory's vision blurred as images flashed in his mind. He saw the chapel's final mass, the terrified parishioners locked inside as the deranged priest who once presided there raised the cursed dagger. Blood spilled like a river as he offered them to an ancient, malevolent entity buried beneath the chapel. Gregory dropped the dagger, gasping, as the realization struck him. The spirits weren't just trapped. They were imprisoned by the very entity they had been sacrificed to. The shadows began chanting in a guttural language, their voices rising in desperation. The dagger glowed brighter, and the ground beneath the altar cracked open, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness. A massive, clawed hand emerged, followed by an eyeless, horned head. The entity's presence was overwhelming, its mere appearance sapping the warmth and light from the room. Gregory fell to his knees, clutching his crucifix. "Lord, give me strength," he cried, tears streaming down his face. Summoning every ounce of his faith, he began to recite the Lord's Prayer, louder and louder, until his voice drowned out the creature's guttural growls. The shadows chanting faltered. The creature shrieked, recoiling as Gregory's prayers grew stronger. The vortex began to collapse, pulling the entity back into the abyss. But as the ground started to seal, the dagger flew into the air, hovering before Gregory. A deep, resonant voice echoed in his mind. "One must stay. The pact demands it." Gregory's heart sank. He realized the terrible truth. The chapel's curse could not be lifted unless someone took the place of the original priest as the entity's warden. He glanced at the shadows, their anguished faces now visible, silently pleading for release. With trembling hands, Gregory picked up the dagger. The shadows began to dissolve, their murmurs of gratitude fading into silence. The entity roared in fury as Gregory plunged the dagger into the ground, sealing the vortex completely. The chapel fell silent, the air heavy with finality. When the villagers found the chapel days later, they discovered it was miraculously restored, its walls pristine, its pews aligned, and its altar spotless. But Father Gregory was never seen again. Some say his voice can still be heard inside, whispering prayers to keep the darkness at bay. And on stormy nights, the bell tolls, though no one dares to see who rings it.